What is medicine for? Is it for therapy or enhancement? In some ways, the answer is obvious. Medicine is for therapy. Medicine is to treat people who are sick, who are injured, and bring them back to normal. Years ago, 50 years ago, a wise physician once told me, doctors need to remember their prime directive, which is to help sick people. But in those 50 years, medicine has changed a lot, and more doctors are doing things different than just healing sick people or healing people after accidents. For example, they're doing facelifts, they're doing breast augmentations, they're prescribing anabolic steroids for athletes, they're prescribing weight loss drugs for people who aren't really sick, they're prescribing Prozac so people can feel not just normal, but maybe better than well. Is this okay? How does this happen? There are some interesting philosophical questions in all of this. So I'm Gregory Pence, and this is Great Stories in Bioethics, my personal weekly channel on YouTube, where I talk about some of the issues I think are really fascinating that have occurred in the last 5 decades, and some riveting stories.
I am beautiful in every single way.
The first philosophical distinction is, of course, between therapy and enhancement. And this is important financially because traditionally, insurance companies will only reimburse us for things that are therapies, and they didn't want to reimburse people for enhancement. And this kind of goes to the notion of what is insurance for? And ideally, at least when Blue Cross Blue Shield started in each state, it was kind of a group project where we all ante up some money and hopefully we never have to use it, but it's kind of a group insurance policy. Over time that changed, and that's for another episode. But at least in that traditional sense, anything extra you had to pay for yourself. And that's pretty much true today. So if you want Botox to make your wrinkles go away, you pretty much have to pay for it yourself. But there's an interesting slide between therapy and enhancement. For example, consider the first cases of breast reconstruction after like a double mastectomy for breast cancer. It soon became obvious that the same techniques that did this for after a double mastectomy could also be used to increase breast size. Now, the early days of that certainly showed caveat emptor. The early days of breast augmentations were silicone implants that basically went wrong very quickly. In 1995, there was a big class action suit against Dow Corning. It was actually held in Birmingham, Alabama by a judge named Sam Pointer. It was a huge settlement because there were so many things that went wrong. So this is a very interesting ethical issue about enhancement because doctors are basically selling something to you, whether it's Botox or Prozac or facelifts, and caveat emptor, buyer beware, because this is very different than a doctor treating you when you're sick and being compassionate and, a healer. This is more of an enhancer, and so it's a whole different mindset. Let's consider a couple things that are in the area between therapy and enhancement. Consider facial reconstructions. Obviously, after burns or an accident, we see this in face transplants, there's a lot of facial reconstruction that is therapeutic. People who have been in car accidents, going through the windshield. Most facelifts today are cosmetic. We've come a long way. In the old days, they just tightened the skin. Now the new technique is to kind of put fillers underneath the skin and make it look more youthful and puffy. South Korea is like the world center for young women having facial and breast surgery. This raises some very suspect norms. Is there a certain kind of phenotype that society is pushing on women where they feel constrained to undergo, facial surgery, breast augmentation, take weight loss drugs? Is there a whole sort of surgical and pharmaceutical armamentarium pushing down on women this way? It certainly seems so. On the other hand, libertarians argue, well, it's their money, it's their body, it's their life. They have a right to shape their bodies as they wish. And certainly a lot of women have gone down that path. Next example is Prozac. Here's a case where there are really some people who have severe depression. And serotonin reuptake inhibitors like Prozac really do help people. And for some people, depression can be life-threatening. Famous comedian Dick Cavett had this. The bioethicist John Fletcher had it. For Fletcher, it actually led to suicide. So for such people, a powerful drug like Prozac can be very therapeutic. On the other hand, for some people, it makes them go from just, so feeling great. And that's definitely an enhancer. Is it okay to feel great on a drug? That's really debated by a lot of people. There are some people who claim it's a false mental mood. It's you're in bad faith if you're only feeling good on drugs. I sometimes in my life I've suffered depression, and it feels like a cold, wet blanket coming over you. You certainly don't want to feel that way. Again, I guess it's up to each person how they respond. A psychiatrist wrote a famous book called Listening to Prozac, and he talks about Tess, who was agoraphobic and lived with her father, was afraid to go out. And then on Prozac, she completely changed, and she decided, this is the real me. This is not a fake me. This is the real me. There are other people like Leon Cass who believe that any kind of personality on Prozac is fake. So kind of a big philosophical debate there. So obviously the big issue today between therapy and enhancement we touched in the previous episode about Biggest Losers has to do with weight loss drugs. And we've seen a bunch of celebrities like Elon Musk who brag about how they've lost weight on things like Ozempic or Mounjaro. Obviously, there's enhancers. It does look like, in some ways, and for some people, these drugs are legitimate therapy. For people who really have diabetes or who have consistently failed and are, quote, morbidly obese, these drugs can be very helpful. The problem is that everybody wants group insurance to pay for them, even if they're on the borderline. For a while, in North Carolina, they were paying for these drugs for all state employees, even if they were pre-diabetic. That was a diagnosis. And of course, we're all pre-diabetic. So they quickly had to dial it back because it was going to bankrupt their state system. All these examples, facial surgery, facelifts, breast augmentation, Prozac, weight loss drugs, really call into the question, what is medicine for, and who are the doctors prescribing these things? Are they basically healers, or are they salesmen? And there's a really different vibe and role between the two. Finally, consider athletes in sports medicine. Everybody who was in sports, and I was in sports in high school, and I've done competitive 5K races. Every athlete wants what's called a positional advantage. That is a little edge over the people who are you're running against. You may not know this, but even coaches are considered an enhancement. They weren't allowed in the Olympics. Athletes have used a lot of things to get positional advantage. The average lineman in pro football over the last 20 or 30 years has gained 50 pounds of muscle, and that's probably due to anabolic steroids. We know the scandals that plagued professional cycling with Lance Armstrong and doping, where they were secretly storing their blood at high altitudes and getting it enhanced with more red blood cells so they could have more energy and endurance in the professional cycling races. And this is an example where enhancement is just cheating. If the rules say you can't use these banned enhancements and you do, you're just a cheater. And again, this is a philosophical debate. There's an English bioethicist named Julian Sobolescu who just thinks we should allow anything, all drugs. We shouldn't test for anything, and then we'll have an equal playing field. Because he argues that athletes will always try to find secret ways of taking enhancements if it's deer urine or, some kind of crazy stuff like that. People will do it. It even looks like high school football players and college football players are using all kinds of enhancements, especially linemen, to get faster. And finally, when we turn to medicine, there are mental enhancers. Like a lot of people, when they start medical school, are not taking Ritalin or Adderall. And by the time they become a resident, they are. I don't know if we've just gotten better at diagnosing the mental need for these things, or whether these things, which are essentially versions of methamphetamine, are cognitive enhancers. There's also a drug that was originally brand name Provigil, modafinil, which is used by pilots and sometimes the soldiers to stay awake for 48 hours. Some residents take it when they have to be up for a long time. It's kind of what the movie Limitless was talking about, only a super version of modafinil. Obviously, this might be dangerous. Obviously, doctors prescribing these things, especially off-label, may be doing something pretty dangerous, and it's way beyond therapy. It's definitely an enhancement. One of the things that's really changed, to conclude, is that over the last 50 years, more and more specialties are in the business of enhancement, psychiatry, dermatology, ENT, medicine. I have a deviated septum. Every time a doctor looks at it, or ENT doctor, they ask me if I want a nose job. I like my nose, so I say no. But that's definitely an enhancement. One of the issues that enhancements raise is, are we moving towards more inequality this way? Physically, in terms of beauty. You can even imagine where there are enhancements to live longer that are going on, which is the ultimate kind of biological inequality. And if you really want to talk about enhancements of inequality, you can start talking about things that people do in terms of choosing embryos or extra vitamins in utero and so on. But again, it raises the question, what kind of doctor do you want to be? In what way are different specialties going? Is there any way to hold the line? Because in many of these cases, the same techniques that started out as therapy quickly can be used for enhancements. That's the kind of the lesson for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a thumbs up, share it, subscribe. See you next Tuesday at 4 p.m.